Welcome back. Now, I've left Rochelle in the studio and I've taken a short walk down here to This Morning corridor. Now, you're used to it down here. Usually we've got pictures of the This Morning family hanging on the walls. Today, however, they're full of portraits of very important people, paying tribute to the British service personnel who lost their lives in the Afghanistan conflict. They're very moving. It's striking how young all these faces are, and the artist behind them is a former British Army soldier himself, Kev Wills. Kev, good to see you.
Nice to meet you, Craig.
First of all, they're beautiful.
Thank you.
They really are. Tell us about them. Why have you done this?
Well, I've done this to obviously honour their memory and to make sure to let the families know, to make sure they'll never be forgotten, really. So it's just a hopefully everlasting memory for them.
The scale of it is absolutely huge because sadly so many lives were lost in Afghanistan. So how many portraits have you done?
Officially, there's 458 portraits, obviously every single fallen soldier of Afghanistan.
And the eyes, I look at the eyes and they just look so young and lost. It's very moving actually looking at these images when you spend time looking at them. So tell us about this gentleman here.
This is Staff Sergeant Brett Lindley. He's actually from Birmingham as well. He was 11 EOD bomb disposal. Sadly, he passed away in July 2010. But yeah, I'll be delivering Brett's portrait to his family next week, personally myself.
I mean, that's a hugely emotional thing.
It is.
For the family, first of all. How do you think they're going to take it? I mean, it's so striking, the image.
They absolutely love the portrait. It was very emotional talking to them on the phone. So I'm sure it'll be emotional next week meeting them as well.
How many have you handed over to families at this stage?
At the moment, personally, 3 or 4. The rest have been sent by post and delivered all across the world.
Tell us what that's like.
Emotional to get thank you letters and letters saying how much work I've put in, and it's all paying off for the families to turn around and say it's absolutely brilliant what you've done. It's
almost like their eyes just seem so alive. I think that's what makes it kind of so sad and so moving, isn't it, Kev?
It's all in the eyes in portraits, I think. So as long as you get the eyes right, everything else can fall into place.
So you were in the Army yourself, but also an artist at the same time?
I was in the Army. I served 6 years in the Royal Logistics as well. And I started taking up art in school through my granddad as well, who was actually an artist as well as fighting in World War II.
And I imagine quite a cathartic thing, Kev. We're going to go and look at some of these over here as well. I mean, they're beautiful portraits and some lovely smiling faces as well.
Yes.
But this one as well is particularly striking, Kev, because it looks like a very familiar face. I feel like I've seen him maybe in the news when he passed away. There's something very striking and familiar about him.
Yeah, more than likely. That's Major James Bowman. He was attached to the Gurkhas. Very aspiring, very, very good officer at the time, and very well liked among his men. And he's basically a legend in the Gurkhas. So, yeah.
How have you actually done these? Because it's not a traditional way of doing portraits, is it?
No, it's not. I used to work in oils and acrylics and canvas, but I ventured out into the digital world, digital painting, about 5 years ago when my twins were born, and it kind of stemmed from there, really. So, yeah, it's a bit different to acrylics and oils, but it's the same sort of process. Sketch them out and then paint, and it's a lot less messier.
It's also a very sympathetic way of reproducing someone's image, isn't it? There's a softness and a warmth to the image.
Yeah. The colours, sometimes I think the colours are so much better than oils and acrylics as well. So, but yeah, it's the same process as an oil painting.
I mean, over 450 of these. You haven't managed to hand, obviously, yet all of them over to the families. That is something you plan on doing, though?
Yes, yeah. I've got approximately 140 to get framed up and sent out to the families. And there's about 85 unclaimed so far.
OK, I think it's an amazing thing you're doing. We're going to go for a little stroll upstairs back to the studio. Rochelle, all yours. We'll see you in a minute.
Thank you, Craig. Now, one of the relatives Kev was able to contact is here with me now. In 2010, Angela Hardy's brother, Lance Corporal Scott Hardy, was killed whilst on deployment in Afghanistan with the 1st Battalion of the Royal Anglian Regiment. And earlier this morning, she was given the chance to see Kev's portrait of her brother for the first time. Angela, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Tell me a little bit about Scott. What was Scott like?
Scott was louder than life. He was a really big character, and everyone who knows him always says, when you met Scott, you knew him, you remembered him, you didn't forget him.
Yeah.
He really was a really good, funny guy.
Impactful.
Yes.
Take me back to 2010, and I know this is tough. What happened that day? How were you told, and what were you told had happened?
So on Tuesday the 16th of March 2010, it was about 7 o'clock in the evening, and I received a phone call from my brother-in-law saying, had I heard from my other brother, only he was on his way to my house, and my sister and my brother-in-law had been asked to go to my house. So I said, I haven't heard anything. So they said, well, OK, we're on our way. OK. I got off the phone and I just had an overwhelming, terrible feeling. It was about an hour later, and all of a sudden all these cars just turned up outside my house. And I opened the door, and I always remember just looking at my brother, Anthony, and I said, it's Scott, isn't it? And he didn't even have to say anything, and he just looked at me, and to be honest, I just ran back in my house and I was just screaming. Unbeknown to me, my house then became full. There was a liaison officer from the service, and a chaplain was in my house as well. Yeah, it was a very emotional moment.
I can imagine so. I can imagine so. And as you know, you said to me in the break, it's 13 years ago.
It is.
And what is so important for you, like I suppose any family member, when they lose somebody close to them, you want to keep Scott's memory alive.
Absolutely.
And he was so impactful, and he was such a, you know, a guy that everybody wanted to know. You want to keep that alive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is the most important thing, to keep his name out there, to keep him alive in our family, and that we include Scott in all our conversations. He's our family.
He is. He absolutely is. Kevin's work creating these portraits are just so special. Craig and Kev are coming back into the studio now. Morning. Morning.
Hi, Kev. You popped down there.
I know that you saw the portrait for the first time this morning. Morning. I mean, this just must mean the world, mustn't it?
It's absolutely amazing. I can't even express in words what this means, Kev. It really is such a lovely thing that he's doing for all the fallen families. Really is. Thank you.
Kev, how does it feel to see Angela, you know, I guess finding some peace and enjoying seeing the painting here today?
Yes, it's nice to see them, most of them together, but it's even more important to meet Angela, and it's very emotional.
Yeah.
Very, very emotional.
I can imagine so. Angela, what do you think you and your family will do? Have you got plans of what you're going to do with the portrait?
Absolutely. So we moved into a new home just under 2 years ago. And the main reason we purchased this house, we have a beautiful hallway. It really is quite spectacular. And I've got a wall with nothing on it. So pride of place is going to be my Scott. So that everyone, when they come in my house, they will see the portrait.
Again, keeping him alive.
Absolutely.
Kevin, you must be really proud of what you're doing here. I mean, when you listen to Angela speaking there, keeping him alive in their home.
Yes, it is. That's what the project was all about, really, to remember all of our friends and soldiers who actually fell in Afghanistan, and to make sure the families know that, so the families know there's people out there always remembering our fallen soldiers.
Yeah.
Well done, Kev.
Thank you.
And Angela, thank you so much for coming down and sharing that today. Lovely to meet you. And yeah, I really hope you enjoy having that in your home.
I will, very much so.
Thank you, Kev.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Thank you both.
So.
Right, and there is still time to take part in today's phone